I love classic 1950s B sci-fi, and there's a game on PS4 called Deadly Tower of Monsters that pays homage to those classic films. But does it do it in the right way, and is the game worth checking out? Or, unlike the movies where they're so bad it's good, is this one game that's just so bad, it's bad? In Deadly Tower of Monsters, you take control of a team of 3 which are directly pulled from classic 50s sci-fi, the main hero, the heroine, and a robot that go along with the adventure. You can switch between the characters by making it to one of the many sleep chambers in the game, and each character, while they all can use the same weapons, they actually all have different abilities that you will need to use from time to time in order to advance, though it isn't done all that often, so for most of the time, you don't really have to worry about which of the main characters you're playing as. You have a good variety to the game's weapons. You have melee and guns at your disposal, and you find them scattered throughout the levels as you're traveling through. You can upgrade these weapons as well using the game's gears that are kind of like one of the many collectibles you can find. There's also money that you'll be able to gather which will be used to help upgrade your character as well as be spent on some of these upgrades. The core gameplay has you beating up a large variety of creatures. One of the best things about this game is the large amount of different creatures you have to fight. A lot of these are like made up of boxes attached to string, and even some of them are clearly stop motion, where you can actually see like the jagged animation to it, which gives it a great look and fits right in with the whole theme of the game. The other part of the gameplay has you platforming through a big variety of different platforms, a lot of them moving or rotating and all kinds of stuff. It can be a bit difficult sometimes to tell exactly where you're going to land, and you can use a jetpack to hover for a short period of time or to clear some distances, but even then it can be difficult, especially late in the game, to tell exactly where you're going to land. The game thankfully has a failsafe for when you fall off of larger platforms. You can hit the L1 button to re-teleport from where the last safe spot you were landed at, but sometimes the game ends up messing up and it's not available when I ended up getting knocked off a few platforms during the course of gameplay. The game's story is kind of told through the director's eyes. Basically, Deadly Tower of Monsters is an old movie, and it's getting a DVD release with a commentary track, and the whole time you're playing through and platforming and killing monsters, the director is throwing in lines and quips, and some of which is humorous, other times it goes along with what exactly is going on screen, and other times it can just be annoying and grinding to the ears, especially considering there's very little time in the game where he isn't speaking. With the game's theme being the giant tower, you're basically traveling up this giant tower with checkpoints spread out throughout. You have a quick travel option to easily go back to any previously loaded checkpoint, and this allows you to not only be able to kind of get back to some of the upgrade stations, but later on in the game when kind of new areas open up on the ground floor of the tower itself, you can easily travel from the top of the tower back down and then from down to up again without actually having to do all that traveling. And there's almost no load time between going from one checkpoint to another, though there is plenty of load times if you accidentally end up dying and you have to reload a checkpoint. From the technical side of things, while the game didn't crash, I mean, there was noticeable slowdown from time to time, especially with a large amount of monsters on screen, or when I ended up jumping off the side of the tower and we're doing the kind of sky gliding type thing you can do in the game in order to get some collectibles or get to a lower part of the tower a little bit quicker. There was definitely some lag here and there with that. Deadly Tower of Monsters is available on the PlayStation 4 for $14.99. It does feature a full trophy list and a platinum, which is pretty easy to obtain. It took me a little under 4 hours to beat the game's main story, and it'll take about 5.5 hours in order to get the platinum. This all depends, of course, on how much of the game's collectibles you end up going after during your initial playthrough. Though with a lot of quick travel, it's easy to get around the game's main map and be able to find everything you missed. In the end, the game's theme ends up winning me over. I love the monsters and just the whole sci-fi thing. If you appreciate that like I do, you're probably going to get a lot of enjoyment out of Deadly Tower of Monsters, and having an easy platinum is definitely a plus too, even with the game's relatively short length. With that said, I'm going to be giving it a 7 out of 10. But anyway guys, that's going to wrap up this review. I'd like to thank you for watching, and of course, I hope you enjoy.